be doing a Beedrill instead of Weedle this week. So I'm gonna want to look into these teams more in depth. I think um, because there generally should be better teams. Um, just kind of give you what I think about them, and I might be wrong about some, but I think my opinion, it's usually when it comes to drafts. It used to be worse than it is, but I think now it's pretty solid. I've done power rankings for some other leagues that are much more in depth than this one. Um, they were like 42 pages long, and they pretty much had exactly everything about the team, just how it works together, everything. So I'll try to make it work, but I might not be able to get everything. So I'm sorry if I missed something. It's harder in video format as well, because you can't keep track really of your thoughts. You kind of have to go as you go along. You can missee something. Uh, you have to be kind of careful. So just let's just go into the first draft, which is yeah, I honestly don't know how to pronounce the name, so I'm just gonna say the Blackburn Snovers. So yeah, he picked up Celesteela. That's probably, to me, I think that's the best mod in the format. It's amazing. It's just the lead sheet sets are really hard to switch into. You can run even metal sunsets are pretty hard. Um, it's difficult to just deal with in general. Autotomize or whatever, however you say that. There's so many things I don't know how to pronounce at this point. Um, it has weakness policy sets, Z move, like offensive sets. It has a lot of sets, just in general. It's really kind of just a tough one to deal with. Like electric types and fire types kind of can deal with it. Neither one likes a lead sheet, but they can both threaten it out. And for electric types, they can volt switch off that, in which he has Garchomp Mega as his ground type to deal with that. But I think it would have been nice if he would have had two ground types to go with Celesteela. I think that's probably the best way to build around it, is to deal with electric types a little bit better. Um, you know, because I think having one ground type and Celesteela is just kind of a bad idea in general. Um, but yeah, Mega Garchomp is definitely a good ground type, which is pretty nice for him. But it can't run Scarfs, which also is kind of bad for electric types, like faster ones, because they can just run Hidden Power Ice and kind of deal with you. So I'm not really a fan of how that works out. I don't think that works out in his favor very well. Um, in that exchange, Tyranitar can pursue trap things, but I don't really see a reason. A set of bulky psychics can kind of deal with Azelf pretty well. All it really does, pursuit. All it really does is help Azelf break things, because it can deal with his psychic types, and then it could potentially boost the Sand Force that Garchomp gets, and gives Stoutland some sand. But I'm not quite a fan of that, honestly. I think it's kind of, it's a great mon in general, which is one of the reasons I think it might be all right. And it gets the team better hazards than just having Azelf. Um, and I think it needs that. And Garchomp Mega. Like I said, I might forget things, but yeah, I kind of like the extra rocker, but I'm not quite. I don't quite get it, personally. Um, anyways, I do think it can kind of absorb. Like, I think Garchomp Mega also, first off, it pairs well with Steela, and then Tyranitar is okay. I think Azelf is pretty nice in the draft as well, just as a backup rocker. Usually, I like to see bulkier psychics. I think it works pretty well though. It gives the team decent speed tiers. So I like that. I think the removal on the team is okay too, and I don't think it's very hazard weak at all personally, except for Yen Mega. Um, So I like Rotom Heat because it can also take the hits that Celesteela can't really take. And it can pivot around. So like Serp though is forced out by a lot of things, and I think that Rotom Heat can cover quite a few of those things actually. Um, like flying, bug, not poison per se, but maybe poison even with just running a little bit of bulk. Fire, it can kind of deal with most of the stuff. I mean, ice too, so it can kind of switch into a lot of those attacks, and I think that Serp will really appreciate that. Because like faster things definitely threaten Serp. But yeah, pretty much. Um, Primarina is just awesome, honestly. It's just a great breaker. It adds the team kind of needed a special breaker, and I think Primarina does that job pretty well. So I mean, I think I like this draft a lot. Um, so it seems to be built pretty well. Miss Magius, it's all right. Because the team's a little bit fighting weak, I would say. I guess a little bit. Azelf and Primarina aren't really the best, answers to them. But Miss Magic kind of adds a little bit to help out with that. Um, it it's just a good special. It's good special offense. I think you could consider it a breaker, but I wouldn't go as far as to say that. Um, Kamala is a good remover, I suppose, but the only reason I'm really okay with it at any point now is just because it's 20 points. And yeah, Mega is, it's a sleeper of a mon. I think it's not really that great, but, it could be dangerous. It's underrated as a breaker, um, more so than like a sweeper or anything, because it doesn't really do that. So I think this team is a pretty solid team. Um, it has good hazards, good speed tiers. It's threatening overall. I think it's built around pretty well. But I don't necessarily think it just not as threatening, I think, as it could be. Uh, where like other teams definitely have more threats on them for sure. That well, I don't know that yet, but a lot of teams I've seen have just seem a little bit more scary than this draft. But I really do think it's a good draft. So Ice's draft, he has a Land of Tea, which is a great mon as well. And whew, boy, you got Zard X and Suicune to pair. I feel like I've seen this before. I know I've actually drafted these two myself, Zard X and Lando T, and it's pretty nice. Lando T is actually a really reliable defogger. And for his other removal, though, all he really has is Zard X itself, and Aerodactyl, and I think that's pretty bad. Honestly, it doesn't use Lando T to his potential, and then I mean, I don't like it personally. I think the draft is like it was started off really nice looking, especially because like Lando T and Suicune pair pretty well, as Suicune can kind of like take a lot of the hits that Lando T doesn't want to stay in on, but Suicune like grass types and electric types, both these two can deal with them. Um, these are two great physical breakers, Lando T and Zard, and I think actually, just they work so well together. And then you get like Conk, and that can just physically break as well. But then we look at your special breakers, and Zard X is like it can run special, but it's not quite a breaker in my opinion. And then you have Raikou, and Raikou's shut down by ground types. And ground types can actually be pretty physical. Um, but I mean, it's not completely shut down by ground types, but it's shut down by ground types weakness. And that's a problem for sure. Um, Although not all ground types, still not all ground types, even without 4 times weakness, because there's some very frail ones that Raikou can potentially deal with. Um, so, like, I think the hazards on this team with Bronzong, Lando T, and Arrow are fine. I'm not really a fan of the removal, honestly. I think it's kind of mediocre for his Zard X team. But yeah, he just has to hope that, he just has to kind of run to Fog Lando a lot, and I don't really think it's a good idea. And then like Raikou can deal with like bulkier waters and stuff, and You know, uh, hmm, I just I don't think it's good as your only special breaker. And yeah, you cannot consider Ninetales a special breaker just because I mean, it has 81 special attack. It can't deal with fire types and it can't deal with steel types. And I just don't think that's a good thing. I think the team is really physical, and you almost don't even need to run special defense EVs on anything, except for a designated Raikou check maybe, and that's kind of mediocre. And I think Ninetales Alola, personally, I hate that mon. I can't fit it on teams. I think this team could potentially fit it more often because it kind of is top heavy, and I think that's pretty helpful for it. But I'm just not a fan. He also has Toxic Spikes on Drapion, and Drapion can absorb Toxic Spikes for his team. But I don't really see his team getting in too much like stall, I guess, because there's a lot of good breakers physically. Um, I don't really know what the idea behind drafting. I mean, Ninetales makes a lot of sense actually for the team he has, but I don't really know like the idea behind drafting like something like Tonk when he has two amazing physical breakers already, and he kind of just needs more special offense in my opinion. He needs better removal. I would have loved to have seen something like Decidui and not have like Gorgeist. Gorgeist is I don't like Gorgeist personally. I don't think it's that good. But Ace has Decidui, and I think he would have really benefited from picking Decidui at round 5. If he was earlier, I'm not sure if he was 1, 2 or so. I think Ace went second overall. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I can figure out if he's earlier. If he was, I think that was a mistake. Um, okay. He was not, I don't think. Okay, but I think he would have really benefited from it personally, and I think Raikou actually could have been saved even longer, considering it wasn't drafted where it was. So yeah, I think the Decidueye would have really fit this team really well. I don't know if he was sniped or something, sniped by Ace, but I thought that was really the better pick on the team. Would have made it look a lot better in my opinion if we'd have had Conk be something a little bit less pricey and then have Gorgeist go to like the Decidueye. Yeah, I would have been a big fan of that as a change. But I think this draft is I think it's worse than Blackburn Snovers, but I think it's an alright draft. Uh, I'm just not a fan of its special breakers and its removal. Otherwise, it seems like it could potentially work out. It has a lot of just options, and yeah, I guess that's it. And Zard can potentially specially break, but I just think it's so much better physically. I don't see that happening. So then Papa Boy's draft Daniel. Okay. So he has a few mons I really like, I guess. He has Deontay and Necrozma, which I love both those mons. Uh, so, but I think Deontay and Flygon kind of pair well together, but I think Garchomp and Deontay is actually a really overrated core. That I don't really like it that much personally. I don't know why. I tried it out. I don't think it's that great. Maybe it was just the way I drafted around it, but uh, I don't know. I didn't really like it that much so far. Um, I think it's all right though. Although I did get like a really top heavy draft. So to me, I definitely think that this team with Deontay Mega that it supports it pretty well. Like it has a lot of things that can switch into the type like things that Deontay Mega doesn't like like bulky waters. It has chestnut, but it doesn't really have a. Oh, okay, it does, but it doesn't really have like Heliolisk or Rotom-Mow, which can really switch in. Like those are some of the better switch-ins I think to bulkier water types, just because they can pivot off of them and they have the bulk. And then you can even argue like Celebi is like that. Um, for his removal, he has Empoleon and Flygon and Volbeat, which I think is all right removal actually. Um, but what I don't like about this draft, first of all, I really don't like this. I think Flygon is your only dragon type. I mean, not only dragon type, the only ground type is absolute trash, honestly. I hate that. I just want to get that out. I think that's complete garbage. Because first off, it has the problem where you can Shin Power Ice it, it's out. And then it's just unreliable. It doesn't even get rocks. It's not bulky. It's not strong. You kind of want stats in a ground type, in my opinion. I think ground types need stats, and he just doesn't have that. And he has 4-time weakness, and that's huge on a ground type. You usually want 2 already off of that. I'm a really big fan of having 2 ground types. And yeah, I think that's just a bad idea, and kind of lets electric types walk on his team. But with that being said, we need to talk about his rockers. When he has Deontay Mega, Empoleon, Necrozma, and then he has Spikes users in Chestnut, and he has Miltank for rocks as well. So I think that's pretty solid. For his offense, he has pretty good speed tiers. He goes 110, 110, 125, and he has 2 base 100s, and then he has some priority with Entei and Weavile. So yeah, he definitely has some good stuff about his draft. I really don't like Flygon as the only ground though, and I have to stress that on a draft, and I don't think it'll work out. So one of the interesting things is he drafted Volbeat and Gengar. I think that's actually a really dangerous combination because if you get a Tail Glow into Gengar, that thing can just blow through almost anything. So that's scary. But again, getting something into Gengar as it's pretty frail is difficult, but that could potentially be a win con in some games, and it has a Z moves as well, so that's pretty scary. I actually like the Z users on this draft a whole lot, and I think that's kind of scary. So for me, I think it has like physical and special walls as well, and like Weavile, it can kind of break through almost anything, and Gengar can definitely break through anything. Entei really, really struggles with bulkier waters, and he still has like a Chestnut or Electros, but again, I think having like so many things that don't really deal perfectly with bulkier waters, because he has a couple things. He would really have preferred having one that can actually resist, like an electric type that can actually resist water, or like Heliolisk or Rotom-Mow, one of those, because I think it really just benefits the type of draft he has. It's not like he has, an actual like huge threat like Raikou, or anything like that. He does have. He doesn't even have he doesn't have slow pivots either. So it's just kind of. I kind of would like to have seen him pair the ground and electric, or the grass and electric or something like that. I actually think that's a pretty good idea. Although you could argue that it would make him really arrows weak. Although I think personally that having a Weavile, I personally don't think that's enough. But I also personally think that it doesn't really matter having a Zygarde answer too much, because that's really just 1 or 2 matchups that you might not even play in the Hive. So yeah, but I do think just Chestnut is a good mon, and I think Eladros is pretty okay. So I think it'll work out. I guess I hope. Yeah, I kind of like all these drafts so far. They're all pretty nice. Jared's draft. So he has a Fable, which is like free rocks, Mamo, which gives rocks as well, and Tentacruel with the toxic spikes as his setters. No, but I don't really like forcing Mamo to run rocks, or having like Clef run rocks a whole ton. So that's just not the best thing, I think. And then he has like his removals like Torn T and then Tentacruel and Rotom Fan. So that's all right, I guess. But I definitely think Toxic Spikes, other than Tentacruel, is really scary for his team. So like he'll need to bring Tentacruel some weeks, and that will really limit him. Because if he doesn't, he's pretty much screwed by Toxic Spikes, and he's gonna need the Fog Torn for sure in those matchups if he's not bringing Tentacruel. You know, and he does have like things like Magic Guard, Clefable, and Immunity Snorlax and stuff like that, and Durant, which are immune to Toxic. But then he has Meg Slowbro, and it limits some of his options. It reveals that Clefable's Magic Guard lets people deal with it that way. It limits Goodra, which doesn't get recovery. I don't like that, so he's going to need Tentacruel some of those weeks. I think the Z users, having Z Durant is definitely good. Z Torn is definitely good. Rotom Fan and Goodra, I think it might have been some of his better options, one of his better options, but I think Clefable is probably better. But I think he's kind of thinking that it would need more of a rock and roll as well. So the team is really pretty slow. It goes from like 100 to 109 to 121, which is just not that fast. It's not painfully slow, but it's not very fast. It doesn't seem. It seems like it has some good bulk on it, but it doesn't seem like super threatening. Especially, honestly, it has Torn and it has Special Gudra, I guess. And then you could say like Slowbro can potentially break, or you can have like a Life Orb Clefable. I just don't like that as a special offense so much. I don't think it's amazing. It kind of looks like a weird team. Um, and it's a little bit fighting weak at the top, but I think he patched that up decently with Tornchi and Slowbro. And he has Clefable as well. But I think like Mamoswine, Snorlax, and Incineroar, and I don't think Gudrick really tanks fighting hits very very well because if it's pretty physically frail in my opinion. Um, so yeah, I think it's a little bit fighting weak if anything. Um, it's even you could argue that it's not it doesn't it's pretty rocks weak. Um, more Rito, right? Not Stealth Rock so much, but yeah, Stealth Rock as well. But it's like Stone Edge. He has like one resist and three weaknesses, and one of them is Torn T, which is one of his bigger mons. So that's pretty bad. He has a good cleric for Toxic Stall, and Toxic Stall is definitely dangerous against his team. Um, Snorlax, helps with like fire and ice types, but he doesn't really have a weakness to those at all. So I don't necessarily know like why exactly he decided Snorlax would be super fitting. I don't think it is personally, and Mamoswine almost seems a little bit redundant with it, but not in the way. I mean, it's a great breaker. It still is one of the best breakers you could have got for like a ground type, but at the same time, like it loses like its bolt beam. Its bolt beam niche is like kind of. I mean, Snorlax deals with bolt beam. Let's just put it like that, okay? Yeah, you're not breaking Snorlax with bolt beam. Mamoswine and Snorlax share weaknesses. Um, so it's like I don't know how I feel about it. Um, he does have two waters, which I think is pretty good. Um, he doesn't have an arrows resist, but he has a Slowbro Mega and Mamoswine, so he's not really worrying about that. And then, like to me, yeah, again, it's really overrated to have one. Um, so I mean, personally, I'm just not a big fan of a lot of the mons he drafted. I like Snorlax. I like Gudra. Tornteen is pretty good, but I don't know. Um, honestly, not like sure. I'm always hesitant to say something about that mon. But then it performs well, but it doesn't seem like it would, and then it's just weird. Um, Tentacruel, I don't really know about. It just has stuff I'm really not sure about, like Incineroar. I'm not a huge fan of Clefable. So yeah, but I think it could work out for sure. because it does have some synergy, but I think the other teams are much better in the same division. Um, basically, that's basically what all I want to say about that. But yeah, I guess that's it. Uh, I'm just not really fan of it. Just want to put it like that. So, picking of drafts, I'm not a fan of. I am not a fan of Ace's draft at all. It has its speed, only speed above 100 is Crobat and Regirola, which isn't really that fast, even, speed tier wise. And then Crobat isn't super strong, nor is Regirola. Regirola is weak as fuck. So, I just think his draft is really weak. He has Excadrill that's sand. He has Gothitelle and Kangaskhan Mega, which I kind of think are overpriced. But Kangaskhan Mega is probably not overpriced, but it's overrated. And he drafted it way too early. Manaphy's very overrated, in my opinion, personally. Um, I don't know what to say. He drafted all wall breakers, so pivoting offense is just gonna walk on him. Um, his only rocker is actually Excadrill, so that's just garbage. For removal, he has Masquerain, Excadrill, Comfey, Hydreigon, Decidueye, Crobat. So that's just overkill. Like that's good, but I mean that's a lot of removal. I think Masquerain can help his team out because it's just a bunch of wall breakers with webs now. But that's all it is. It's just a bunch of wall breakers with webs, and um, I don't think that's just. I just don't think that's a very well built team. Um, so basically, Goth can trap fighting types for King Skamega, and I think that's what it's supposed to be like built around a little bit. But it just doesn't work out because Kangaskhan Mega really isn't some sort of. I mean, it's a wall breaker. It doesn't sweep games. It's. I mean, you could expect maybe Manaphy to clean up after it breaks some stuff, but that really won't work out. It won't, especially against pivoting offense, and it's just kind of weak to a lot of coverage. Like it's like even like just it's not even that bad against. I mean, it's pretty bad against fighting types actually. Still, even with Goth, because some of its main threats are weak to it. It's not just like Kanga; it's Exa and Hydreigon, and then like the Decidueye and Excadrill. Uh, they don't like, and Masquerain all don't like fire, and then I mean you can just kind of will wisp on Kanga as well, but there's still Goth. So Goth is kind of dangerous, but you can always run a Shed Shell, and that's helpful, but I don't think it's enough to make it super useful necessarily. I definitely, and then he doesn't have Z Hydreigon, and that's kind of a waste, I think. Or he doesn't have Sand, because he got sniped, and I think that makes his draft so much worse than it could have been. Um, Comfey, I guess, could be threatening. Manaphy maybe could be threatening, but I think it's really overrated, and it just kind of beats balance. But this team doesn't have a way to beat offense, really, especially pivoting offense. But regular offense as well, just can run shed shells and some stuff, and you'll be fine. Because, I mean, even if you look at how much stuff gets knocked off, it's really like Manaphy, Decidueye, and it kind of, I don't know if Kanga's, but it kind of just ends there. It's not too much, and I just don't think it's really effective. And I don't think this draft is very good. Um, it could deal with some of the bulkier teams for sure. Slow teams, easy. Um, Even like balance is it can do okay, but when it comes to pivoting offense or regular offense or any of that, it's just not gonna work. And then there's stuff like if you have something like Mind Shao, Mine Shao just kind of walks all over the team, especially other than a few things like Crobat and Comfy, and those are definitely nice on the team. I'll be honest, but I still don't think it's enough for the team to make up for the flaws that it has one rocker, that it's slow, that it's just not a good team in general. So Versify's team is it's it's got really good breaker, Carbon Black, and then it pairs that with decent speed, and good hazards, good removal. Um, so that's already kind of scary. So Glide Score is it's just a monster to deal with. And then like Sizer Mega is also absolutely a pain in the ass. You can just like roost up on a lot of shit. So you like need hidden power fire. On some teams are going to need that. Um, for like his fire switch-ins though, I mean he's kind of limited himself to just using Seismitoad. And that's one of the things I don't like about this draft is because like if Glysker can't take it, Seismitoad is pretty much forced, and that could be an issue, especially if they can run some grass coverage. But even if not, Seismitoad can't recover itself. He doesn't really have good wish support. Slurpuff isn't really the best at that. Jolteon is also not really the best at that. So that could be a little bit of an issue looking at this team. To be honest, um, that Scissor doesn't really have a place to go for fire, and the draft's actually a little bit weak to fire in a sense, um, because I think it's taking that Infernape is some sort of fire resist, but it's not, and then the other two don't really have recovery and don't appreciate getting toxic or getting will wisp or any of that. And then if you look at how like yeah, I think Celebi is a cleric. I'm like 99% sure about that, but even that I could be wrong. And Slurpuff I know is a cleric, so they can deal with toxics and will wisps, but Slurpuff is pretty bad at it. So yeah, and I know Jolteon actually can heal Bell as well, but I don't know how. Like I don't think that's always a great idea. Infernape can definitely break a lot of stuff too, and Scissor Mega can deal with the fairy types for Chiron Black, and like Dragon types are okay against this team, but like they're gonna need fire coverage for size for Scissor, and then like Slurpuff is still gonna be a big problem. And this team has a lot of priority because it has Nate with Mach Punch and Vacuum Wave, and it has Scissor with a Bullet Punch and Bisharp Sucker. So that's dangerous in itself. It has a great belly jump sweeper with Slurpuff. Slurpuff also gets webs, which can be really dangerous for Chiron Black and Infernape. So I mean, it has a lot of options. It can pivot around with a lot of its mons as well in the near the right top, pretty much like the right top four mons. Celebi and Golbat can all like pivot around and just work around like that, and help each other out, which is pretty nice. And it's definitely not weak to bulkier waters because it has Karen Black, Celebi, and Jolteon. For like Bulkier Psychics, it has Scissor Mega, which can easily deal with them with U-turns as long as they don't have like fire coverage. And then it has Bisharp as well. So yeah, which is a nice backup steal, and it can, just it's also actually another rocker. The team for its rockers, it has like a lot. It has Bisharp, Celebi, Seismitoad, Gliscor, and Infernape, which is scary. And that has a lot of defoggers like Scissor Mega, Gliscor, Golbat. Um, well, actually, I mean, but they're all reliable at least. Let's just put it that way. So I think it's a scary draft. It's pretty defensive, I guess. But the only problem is I think fire is actually pretty good against it. Can kind of toxic stall it in a way. But I think other than that, it's a really good draft. Arf's draft, Mandress Fair thrown around one again. But okay, put that aside, right? I think it's hmm. That's a weird draft. Thundy's a good breaker. Pharaoh and Slowbro seems pretty good, you know? I definitely like that. I think Ditto's just underrated, honestly, because it just over centralizes prep, in my opinion. It's people act like it's some sort of joke, really, of him on. I guess it's because it doesn't fit on teams in particular, because it's just like you need roles, you need a lot. It's like the one you get if you already fulfilled everything, and that's kind of difficult to do. So I kind of get why people are down on Ditto, but that mon is scary. It's scary mon. Um, Umbreon is really a pain in the ass. So I mean, this he kind of has a Stolly ish feel to him. He has a Karatali, which I got as well, which is nice to see. Which is another grass type for him. Another one that doesn't actually deal with ground types, but he does have Gligar, and yeah, that and Slowbro and Pharaoh both deal okay with him. But his team actually has a little bit of problems with grounds. I would say because he doesn't really have a good like Thundy's a resist, I guess. Gligar's a resist. So really, like ground with ice coverage is just really enough to deal with him. So that could be a little bit of an issue. Uh, but Lycanroc Dusk is really nice, and Hippentop's an Unmon. You know, I guess it has priority. Lycanroc also has priority. Hippentop's absolutely terrible though, and paired with it for removal is Dundee, which gets Defog, but it will never ever run Defog, and Gligar, which also gets Defog, and it will run Defog. But I'm so not a fan of Hippentop. I think it's just Trashmon. I would get rid of it almost instantly for almost any fighting type other than Hitmontop. Okay, so basically that's all I have to say about that. Altaria Mega, people hate it. I don't hate it. I think it's okay. It's not good, but it's. I mean, it honestly, it's really underrated for what people say about it. Um, it's not like fantastic, but it's not terrible at all. It's pretty good. So and I think it pairs well with some of the stuff like Pharaoh just really well built around, and like Slowbro as well pairs pretty well with this. It definitely stops some dragons in their tracks. The whole team in general. Um, so I think it's actually a decent squad. It has some unmons though, like Hitmontop. Hitmontop's really the only unmon I see. I see Hitmontop as a really bad mon. Its rocks are decent. It has Ferrothorn, like Rock Dust, Cradley, and Gligar, and then Ferrothorn can also set spikes up. So yeah, and Altaria I almost forgot also gets Defog. Victini, like it has more trouble with what does Victini not break? Dragons basically like I think it gets Glaciate, but it doesn't get any coverage for them. But I think dragons are fine when you have Altaria Mega and Ferrothorn. And then you have Lycanroc Dust, which hits a lot of them super effectively. And you have Ditto, which can, deal with them. But, he doesn't necessarily have a super amazing, like, switch if for a dragon, like, I don't know. Any of them that carry fire coverage, he doesn't really have a really good switch into him. So we'll see how this draft works. I think it's actually an alright draft. And it's kind of underrated, I would say. So Rice Bulls draft. Um, He actually got 3 water types, which is interesting. Um, I like Tran, and I think it would pair well with Amoonguss. But let's just say I'm so not a fan of Amoonguss. I think it's so bad. Its price is way too high. I would just rather get regenerate a mon that's not a grass type and separate the two and get another grass type because it's just not worth it. And Buzzhole and Mungus kind of support Heat Train a lot. Cortana, this is amazing thing I love. I personally love this myself. Cortana can go right into Heat Train. Heat Train can absorb that hidden power fire. If it's a Scarf hidden power fire, it can use like Z Sunny Day, and then you start like spamming something like Eruption, and that can be breaking through things like Quillfish in one hit. So I mean, like not lesser of the bulky water types. Like it's so strong, you have no idea, and then it gets solar beams as well. So like that's horrifying. To have a heat train boosted with flash fire, like there's no words for how scary it is. It is fucking scary to have a heat train with flash fire against you. So yeah, Cortana's definitely plays well on the team because having something like Heat Train to back it up is just makes it all the more terrifying. Um, and I think it's underrated. Guard of Omega, I don't really like that much, but in terms of how it fits, it's gonna have more trouble. It's gonna have more trouble with things that like something like Jellicent can kind of deal with a little bit, other than maybe Ghost, which Ghost Mandibuzz I guess can deal with. So that's all right. The team definitely has a little bit. It doesn't really have like a super good steel for actually, you know, being a steel type. And Dougie's honestly like a little bit underrated as a ground type. Um, Especially Alolan Dougie, I would say, because it doesn't have a 4 times weakness, and it's kind of just more difficult for electric types to play around. And then, yeah, he also has Swampert, but I think that kind of makes it tough for electric types, personally. Um, and that makes it also really hard because he has Greninja as well, and his grass. The rest of his team, other than Swampert, grass is just and Jellicent. Grass is just kind of awful. Like Heatran and Among Us, you don't want grass, and you're going to want a Scarfer for like Greninja in that regard. So if Greninja can offensively beat you, you're kind of screwed. And he has Mandibuzz, Kartana, and Rotom as his removal, and I think that's all right. Just it relies a little heavily on Mandibuzz, but it's all right. Greninja, Heatran, Swampert, and Dougie are his setters, and that's also decent, I would say. And then his speed tiers rely a lot on Greninja and Kartana because Dougie Alola is a little bit redundant with Kartana. I actually don't necessarily like that pick, but it kind of makes it a little harder. I like having 2 ground types, so I can understand that pick a little bit better. Now, what I would have liked to have seen is like a dragon type, though. I think it's really important to have one. But otherwise, I think that's a pretty solid draft. Even though it has a mon I don't like, which is Mungus. I think Mungus fits pretty well in with the draft with Buzzhole. So I probably spent a lot of time already looking over like the first 8 teams, but I'm going to try to continue that and really make this in depth. So David's draft. This is an interesting draft. It's just not very. It's not very fast. First off, its speed tiers are like 100, 105, and 110. Its priority is only like New Blade, which is just not good. I would say it has quick attack Zard Fly, but I don't really count that too much. And Zoroark Sucker Punch is a little unreliable, but you can play around it pretty well and work that. And then it has a speed in that it can use Venusaur to in Sun. So yeah, David's draft. I really like Zardwy personally, so I think that's a scary mon that deserves it deserves to be a little bit more than it gets because it's not treated like it's a good enough mon. It's a scary ass mon. It can DN sweep. It can flame charge sweep. It could wall break like fucking just destroy your worlds. It's terrifying. And even without like sun support, it's just a scary ass mon. So yeah. Kama is just honestly also pretty underrated as a defensive mon. And Zoroark, I think he'll be able to use it pretty well in this. Although it won't be able to like disguise super well necessarily, but he kind of has a little bit of a struggle with psychic, but because they can just carry hidden power fire for Escavalier, which to be fair can carry Mega Horn and Pursuit, which can deal with them. But for rocks, he has Deontay and Donphan and Kamao, and I could see all of them being used. For removal, he has Latias, Donphan, Autumn Wash, and Zardwai if he wants to run that. And then Garbodor can set up spikes and Toxic Spikes. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. And then he has two grounded poisons actually. Um, and a lot of his draft can't even be touched by poison, by Toxic Spikes. There's absolutely no reason to Toxic Spike against this draft. So that's kind of funny. But yeah, um, I like the way like Rotom Wash is pretty well supported with Zardwai because I mean that it's just an easy switch for grass types. With ground types, he kind of doesn't necessarily do that much for them, but like Rotom Wash doesn't really isn't really scared about ground types because of the Hydro Pump, and it's just a great water. A great electric and water. I mean, not really water as much just because it doesn't have a wide pool of coverage for from that spectrum. Like it doesn't have ice beam and stuff like that. And a lot of this draft lacks like ice coverage other than Latias with ice beam and stuff like that. So you might have trouble finding coverages to beat teams because of the lack of some types, I would say. But Red Wash is really solid with Zardwai. As I said, it's a good grass, could deal with the grass types. Other than like Tangrowth with Rock Slide and could be Chlorophyll even, so that'd be scary. But then he always has Kamao, which can deal with Tangrowth really well, for example. And Zardwai, it struggles with the rock types, obviously. Dragon types can kind of sometimes deal with it. And he has Deontay and a Escavalier and a Doublade. I think that's enough, but it could be better for Dragon types. It would have been nice to have seen like something with like Ice Shard or another way. I mean, he could use like a Scarf Latias or something maybe, just to like revenge. So yeah, it could work. And yeah, for rock types, you can just go into Venusaur, and that's always a bit of work. His Kama O always there, and yeah, it's not bad. So yeah, I think that kind of sums up his draft. His draft is just, I think it's all right. Well, Latias also, I forgot to say, that struggles with steel types, and Mega Venusaur, I mean, not regular Venusaur can struggle with steel types as well. But Zardwai can definitely break them. He has a lot of things that can just deal with steel types on the upper half of his draft. So then you have Genius's draft, who builds kind of oddly around Blacephalon, but he does have Sun with it, which is kind of interesting. It could work. I think like Mew and Scolpede's definitely a scary combo. But yeah, I don't know like why Blaze necessarily is built the way it is. Like bulkier rock types are definitely like an issue for Blaze, which he has Krook for, which is nice. But like bulkier water types are also an issue. Like he has Rotom. Um, bulkier like dragon types in general can be a little bit of an issue. And he doesn't actually have much for dragon, except for like our shards and Metagross, but he doesn't have a fairy type, so I'm not really. I don't really like that personally. I think having a fairy type would have been nice for him, because like you can just run a dragon coverage with earthquake, and you can kind of tear in a way, and yeah, that's just what I think. It's just Dragon Week. It has, for removal, it seems okay, I guess. Not great. And then like for like rocks and spikes, toxic spikes, stuff like that. It's got a couple options, but they're pretty interesting. Options. He has a little bit of priority, but it's not a whole lot. He has like Metagross, Dragonite, Gallade. He might have more than I even said. He has a lot. Victory Bell as well. And Mew even gets like Vacuum Wave and stuff like that too. I think Mew also gets Sucker. Yeah. So yeah, it seems like an interesting draft. We'll see how that's used. There's some stuff I like on it. Like I think Metagross is one of the best mons at its tier for sure. Crook's pretty good. Mew's pretty good. Dragonite's pretty good. Apparently, I think I'm supposed to think Victor Bell's pretty good after this draft. So I don't know. Let's see. Okay. Um, so I'm just gonna move on to Omega. I don't want to go too much into that draft. Uh, yeah, I just don't. Um, so Omega's draft is like it is Garchomp and Finny, which Garchomp's an Earthquake spammer and not like a Dragon move spammer. So that's nice because like it's not gonna be too annoyed by the weakening of Dragon by terrain. Um, and Scissors, is all right too by the terrain. So like if it were Bulu, Garchomp I think would be more annoyed, and if it were like Lily, then yeah. So I think Finny works pretty well. So I think their removal on this draft is really nice, honestly. With Delmizzi, Tapu Fini, Scissor, Aerodactyl Mega. That's pretty nice, and I think it supports Volcarona very well. And for its actual rocks, it has Aerodactyl Mega, Garchomp, Uxie, and Blissey. And I think Blissey is very underrated, by the way. And it's kind of easy to prep for, but it makes you have to prep a lot. And yeah, so to me, I think it got some scary. It has some scary physical offense. It has good speed tiers too as well, but most of his speed is physical, and most of his team is relatively physical as well. He doesn't have a lot of special offense as options, and I think he's going to have to rely too much on Volcarona to have some physical offense. But we'll see how that works. He has great priority. He has some good walls, especially, and physically he's all right too. But it's mainly special walls. Like physical attacks, he might have some trouble switching into some stuff, especially like fighting types with really any sort of coverage, like poison jab, knock off. Just weaken Finny and then just win the game maybe. So yeah, we could see how that plays out, but I don't think it's going to go out that well. Personally, I just don't think it's really that well built like that for fighting types. I'm Toxic Rogue's a good breaking fighting type. I think Arrow is like, it has some trouble breaking a couple types, especially ground types, in my opinion, and steel types. But it has, I think, Aqua Tail and Earthquake. So, it has coverage for almost everything. But like ground types and steel types particularly are like more of what it struggles with. So I think like Garchomp actually pairs pretty well with it though. I like Arrow Mega. I think it's just a really good mon. I think this whole draft is like kind of just more difficult to deal with. Offensively, Volcarona and Garchomp I think is also really good offensively. Um, I think it's a pretty good draft, and I think the Scissor deals with a lot of the fairies, that Garchomp doesn't like. I think the Fairy Dragon Steel core is, which I don't usually, I don't really believe in cores, but I think it forms a pretty good core. I don't really believe in them, but it's really just synergy in three Pokemon of a certain type that that commonly have synergy. So those mons have synergy, pretty good synergy. Um, so yeah, but Finny can still weaken Garchomp's Outrage and Dragon Claw, so you have to be pretty careful about that, and worry about the kind of coverage you're bringing. So yeah, I think it's a good draft. I like Omega's draft, but we'll see how it works. Also, Sneasel's Pursuit, which can, if you look at what it can benefit, it can really just benefit like Toxic Rogue, and nothing really else, which is not really optimal, but it's all right, I suppose. I like Omega's draft though. I think it's pretty good. We'll just have to see how it does. Then there's Will the Most. We're finally getting somewhere in these. So he has a Zapdos, which I think is awesome personally. And Gallade Mega. I really like Gallade Mega. Um, I really like Zapdos too. I actually like Maltic a lot. I like a lot of these Mons a lot. So it's just time to see if they pair well together. Cragganol, and Fortress is some good removal. Then he has Whimsicott as well. Um, so, I mean, he's not a super hazard team either, so it's kind of nice. And he has Zapdos even. So he has great removal for a team that's not even that weak to hazards. Um, for his hazard setting, though, all he has is Fortress for spikes, toxic spikes, and stealth rocks, and Diggersby for spikes, and Druddigon he actually has two for stealth rocks. So that's all right. And then Mekalola can deal with the bulkier psychics and ship him down for a Gallade Mega to clean teams up, which is pretty nice. But the team isn't very fast in general. Its speed tiers are okay just because it's like Whimsicott and stuff. But it's not super fast. It has some priority with Gator and quick attack from Diggersby, but it's not super fast, so that could be an issue. It would have probably liked web support. It could spin block, which is nice for the actual few hazards it has with Chandelure. Even though I don't think that's an amazing spin blocker, personally. Um, I just don't think it is because like Exca is one of the things that can do that could spin. Uh, you know, and then there's a couple things that could spin but there is like Delmizzy that could spin, and this would potentially be okay, but I mean it's still a risky switch. And there's like Sand Slash, just some stuff it doesn't want to switch into, even Sentinel gets a strong Earthquake. And then Malatic can abuse competitive though, so the Fog is also kind of risky. It has a good, Dragon Ant slash Sword Sand Sweeper and Gator, so that's nice. Diggersby's a good breaker, pretty underrated. Chandelure could even potentially clean games up, win games, sweep. So I like that. I think it's built around pretty well. Um, it's an interesting team. I think I like it. Um, it's not super fast, and I do still think it would have benefited from web support over something like Cragganol, which to me doesn't make too much sense, honestly. Um, on this draft, I don't think it really makes that much sense. Um, Maybe he was thinking he was a little bit ice weak or something. I don't really think that. You have Malatic and Fortress and Chandelure, and like if they run Hidden Power Fire for Fortress, they're fucked by Chandelure. So yeah, I think it's all right. I think this is a pretty good draft. I don't dislike almost any of these drafts so far. If I were to pick my favorite draft, uh, I'm biased, so I don't want to necessarily do that yet. There might still be a better draft, but one of the better drafts actually I thought was Rise Plus drafts, and I thought Inversify's draft. I'm biased there, but I think his draft is pretty good. I think have a good draft. I think Ice has a good draft. Those are probably like my top four drafts right now. Is Rise Pool, Inversify, Ice, Black Prince Snovers, because I can't pronounce that name, and Will. Omega's probably up there too. Even like I'm just gonna start saying the best two from each, and I think Omega and Wills are the best from this, and Inversify and Rice Pool from the Bread, and the Blackburn Snovers, and the Barcelona Bagons from the Yellow. So, and we'll decide what the best are from there. So now we have APP's draft, and this is second. Trying to figure out what that is. Is that Kyrum? Might be Kyrum. Yeah, it's Kyrum. Okay, so he has a random ass Gigalith. First off, I just want to point that out. Um, but yeah, so he has his rockers are decent. They're all in the same spot. His removal is Coco, Wucha, and Volibee, which is really pretty shitty. I don't really know what he was doing, honestly. And he is What? He has a Z Registeel? Huh? Did he really? Really? Okay. That's whack. I don't even think Z Keldeo is really that good. So Um, I mean, Coco Lucha is just really a really good core. And I think Shaman with Coco is pretty good. Shaman also works well with Caldeo, in my opinion, but I mean, they're both kind of flying weak. But I think that's actually where a good rock type is important. But Giggle is so expensive for, just not having like actual sand. Kyurem is, a great mon to have just on a lot of teams. But I think it's a little bit fighting weak. Personally, this team because Coco and Lucha aren't very good resists. Gardevoir, I suppose it's a resist, but like Poison Jab switching into that, you're not going to live. And then you still have one Mon, and that's Nidoking. And yeah, I mean Nidoking can take fighting moves, but then like if it has like Earthquake coverage or Ice Punch, it's still going to do a lot. And yeah, I just don't think it's great against fighting. Um, Psychic also actually does quite a bit to this draft. Like Lucha, Keldeo, and Nidoking are all weak to Psychic, and his resists are Gardevoir, Registeel, and Volibee. And Volibee is the only one with recovery, so that would be interesting to see how that works. The team's pretty fast. At the top, you can see, but that's his only speed, and two of them are fighting types, but that's pretty good, even though it's like type stack. I think type stack's pretty good sometimes. Keldeo is his only water, so he doesn't really have a bulky water. Yeah, he actually has a more bulky fire, which is kind of unusual. Um, yeah, I kind of like this draft, even though it has the random Gigalith. But it has a random Gigalith, so I mean, it still could be a top five draft. I mean, a top two draft in this division, but we'll see. Keldeo really only struggles with things that it can't really break, which is only things that have resist both of its stabs, and that's like Latias and stuff like that. And I guess Gardevoir can deal with that kind of stuff. And then like, there's also still stuff that like Water Bug and Water Bug. I guess Kyra maybe, sort of. Could switch in and do something break off of that. Yeah, it might work. So Dougal's draft. Dougal. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm not really a super big fan of either one of his second or third picks, Scrummy or Hoopy U. But I think Hoopy U is a decent Trick Room sweeper. I don't necessarily think he built very well around that ideal, other than maybe Volcanion. So I don't think he thought the same thing as I do about Hoopy U. I think he thinks it's a sort of breaker on bulk, and maybe it could do that. But it might pair well with Lincoln, but I think it would need more pivot, like more of a pivoty team. I don't think he has. Uh, I don't think Galvantula really is going to help Hoopy U too much, honestly. I just don't. You know what? It might help it. Uh, Hoopy U needs a damage boosting item, and it can't deal with the speed tier. Personally, that's what I think about it. So I like Trick Room sets, but I think if you have webs up, maybe it would work. I haven't tried it, so maybe it is a good idea. It might work out. Megalopony and Hoopy U sounds like an interesting idea. Skarmory, I think it's supported okay with like Zygarde. Zygarde, 10%, kind of deals with the things that Skarmory, hates, and it gets them out, and it could potentially break and stuff like that. So I think that's all right. Um, and he has two spikers with Skarmory and Roserade. Then he has Roserade can Toxic Spike. He has a Mesprit, and Palisand can also both rock. So that's interesting. Mimikyu's, I think, pretty good on a Megalopony team. It sounds like it's a good idea. because it can easily get chip on, and it can prevent like sweeps pretty much. Uh, so I mean, I think the team though, other than like, uh, hmm, no, what actually? I mean, it looks like actually it might be able to work. I'm just not really sure about this team. Like, other than Megalopony, I just don't think it's really all that good value wise, and I don't know how that. I think it works. It synergizes pretty well. Um, so yeah, it's definitely interesting. Volcanion, um, hmm, the team's actually really pretty water weak. Like Scald, other than Roserade, nothing wants to switch into a Scald at all. So yeah, it's interesting. To have a water immunity. Uh, I guess it's. I mean, I don't think it's really a great idea to separate the fire and the water types. If you, I guess it kind of makes you weaker to water. Um, eh, I don't really have too much of an opinion on this team, honestly. I think I think Zygarde 10%. He's gonna have to use it more as a breaker than a cleaner. Um, and it's an interesting breaker. It can kind of deal with things like almost anything, but it's anything not bulky at least. And then like the bulkier stuff OPU works with. So I guess I guess it works out. So now there's L5's team, which has Zygarde, the other Zygarde, Latios, Toxapex, Pinsir Mega, Magnezone, Klefki, Persian Alola, Paloswine, Lilligant, Silvally, and Hitmonlee. And I like how Magnezone can trap, like steals for Latios. Even though Latios has like Earthquake Dragonite sets, it makes it harder to tell what kind of Latios is going to come because it can still run a special set while your Steel type is on the field. Although the Steel type can also run Shed Shell, so he's probably still going to go with Dance, but you really don't know, and that's kind of a scarier. This kind of makes it scarier, in my opinion. So, and I also think Zygarde and Pinsir Mega work very well together. So I like that. I like how they pair. Toxapex is just a good mount in general. So like it can deal with a lot of types. You just switch into them, shut them down. But it doesn't like taunt, sub, setup. But setup, it has haze. But if you taunt and then you set up, then it kind of gets annoyed. Things like Pukumuku also hate that. I hate Pukumuku because it's just setup fodder, honestly. And I think it's meant to stop setup, but really it's just fodder. Um, but like Toxapex, I think is a great mon, and it works on the team pretty well. The team has pretty good priority, so that makes it easier to work with. Because it has like Power Slam with Ice Shard, Hitmonlee has like Mach Punch, Pinsir Mega has Quick Attack, and then Zygarde has Extreme Speed, so that works out. His removal is like Silvally, Klefki. Hitmonlee's bad remover, but he has it, and Latios. So that kind of helps the one thing that's really weak to rocks, which is Pinsir. So Persian Alola is just kind of interesting. So I mean, it can. I think that's probably as a user, just because most people do that. But I think it'd be interesting as a user because it can if he gets to remove rocks at any point later in the game, he can heal up Pinsir Mega, which is probably pretty helpful. So for his rockers and like hazards, he has Paloswine for rocks, Klefki for spikes. Pinsir Mega can actually set rocks, but it's pretty terrible. And then he doesn't really have any other rockers, so Paloswine's pretty much his only rocker, which is really not think something I'm really a fan of. But yeah, okay, let's just see how that works. And Toxapex is for Toxic Spikes. I mean, I would like to recommend another rocker for that draft. I mean, there's some things I really like about it. And I honestly, Lilligant, I'm not a fan of either. I just don't think it's that good. I think the speed tiers on this draft are fine. I think it seems like pretty threatening. Um, but I really would like to see another rocker on it. Um, that's really my main critique about it. Right now, I think out of these drafts, uh, so far, without seeing Alex's draft, it's kind of close. I think I probably would. Hmm, I would probably feel most comfortable myself using ABP's team. And then I would probably choose if I were to play a team, uh, I would rather use Dougal's team, but that's only because I don't like using Zygarde. But yeah, okay. So that's really not fair. So I mean, I think Dougal and L5's teams are pretty close. Alex's team, I'm going to check that out now. Jirachi and Settlements it's obviously going to work out pretty well. So he has Tangrowth and Olamamoa, or whatever that, and Chansey. So that's kind of gross. So I think it's kind of nice, I guess, though, like how it works out. Settlements, for Ice Switch, you can kind of just go into Olamamoa and eat those. Dragons, yeah, I mean it has an ice shardder, it has Cobalion and Jirachi. I would have loved to have seen a fairy, but he didn't draft one, and I think that was a huge mistake on his part. Um, Another huge mistake I think is he didn't even draft a water type. Um, I don't know what the hell he was thinking really in that regard. Um, so I think it's kind of iffy. Um, so now he drafted Excelgor. So I mean, by the way, his hazards are like Excelgor, Chansey, Jirachi, Cobalion, Landorus. So he has some good hazards, but yeah. For removal, he just has Salamence and Zadulif and Lando. So that's not that great. His removal is actually pretty bad. Um, Cobalion's like a dangerous fighting type, a pivot, and a steel type. But yeah, you know what? I don't know what this draft's really going for. It has two steel types for stuff. Um, and I'm just really confused about this draft overall. It doesn't draft a water. It doesn't draft a lot of types, like water and fairy, and it just doesn't seem like a draft I would want to use. And then it had pairs of Summits and Lando together, and they both struggle with ice types, and then he has two things that struggle with ice types and two steel types. So I guess maybe that could work out. But um, I don't think so. It has actually a really big ice weakness. 5 mons on the draft are weak to ice. But then it has 3 resists that are all really reliable. But uh, I'm just not a huge fan of that already. It's not even really that fast. It goes 100, 100, 101, 108, 145. I mean, it's pretty slow. Amphimega just didn't really make sense again. Um, I don't know what to think about this draft, and I think Amphimega would have paired pretty well with like a Bulky Water. Because it. Well, okay, okay. Um, so I mean, I can already say I like this draft at least in the red, but not red, the blue. So I think if I were to take drafts, I'm just gonna take AVP and Dougal's draft. And if you compare them to like Omega and Will the Most, I think both Omega and Will the Most have better drafts, personally. And like Diversify and Rice Bowl both have really good drafts. I think if I were to have two move on from there, I probably those drafts are all really good. But I actually want to check blue, or not blue, yellow. I probably want to eliminate Ice's draft honestly next. Like it's not really that good. Um, and yeah, so I mean the top 5 drafts in any order really are Blackbird Snowbirds, Philadelphia Scolipede, Rhine Valley Guardians, New England Patriots, and Chicago Care Coasters, in my opinion. Um, but I mean, that's you can think whatever you really want. I mean, you can just try to go off what mons you like, or you could try to actually figure out how they synergize. And um, yeah, uh, I think there's so much better synergy in some of the drafts than there are in others. Like I don't understand some of the drafts like Aces as much. I think that's kind of really an iffy draft. I hope you liked it. I mean, if you thought some of my ideas were trash, I mean, uh, I don't really care. I'm just doing it for the honey, so get mad. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm trying to be insightful. Just take it as you want. If I didn't like your draft, um, maybe you'll do fine. It really, the game is just number one important thing is really not just having the worst prep in the world. Number two is probably not having the worst playing abilities in the entire world. Just being competitive in those two aspects is the number two things. Number three is luck, because luck is more important than being above competitive. Competitive is just like able to function. Luck is more important. And then there's after that being like actually really good at prep and really good at playing, and those things are like extras in a way. Um, and then it's draft. Then it's draft really. Other than like not having a completely garbage draft, but I mean I don't think any of these drafts are completely garbage, but there's some that are really confusing. Alexis, I'm really confused. I don't understand why. I mean I think it actually could work because I think Alex is a good player, but I don't know. Like this draft just seems maybe I'm just too bad to understand this draft. That might just be me, but I don't like it. So yeah, I'll see you guys. Another PR trying to get more hunting later, probably.